So, this is where the story ends, but a lot happened between those trophies and my first collegiate season of cross country. So, let's take it back. So, in my cross country analysis video, I go over this season in depth, but my freshman year of cross, I had really a breakout season, and I was able to win conference and regionals and was one of the favorites along with Molly Seidel going into nationals. Now, at nationals, it was a pretty close race, but I ended up coming in second, which was great. But given the rest of the season, I was left wanting more. And I even used the hashtag Stay Hungry on my Instagram post after nationals. And in my training log, I wrote almost good enough. So I was pretty fired up. Now, I actually have my entire training log from the lead up to this season and this season, and it shows what my weekly mileage was in the summer and during the cross-country season, and it also shows that the week after nationals, I was already up to doing a 10-mile run by that Saturday, and I took 2 days off total after the season, so yeah, I was ready to get rolling. In that Christmas break, I did just that. I was stacking week after week of over 70 miles, getting in quality workouts, also having fun with my family, but I was definitely going after it and increasing that volume from what it had been during the season. And when I got back to school at the end of winter break, I remember doing some crazy workouts like this 10-mile tempo run and 16 by 400 just in the pouring rain and wind. So I was feeling good. My first race of the indoor season was a 5K on a 309 meter flat track at UW. And Kim Conley was in this race, and she went out really fast with a pacer, but I wasn't feeling ready to go with her, so I just went with the chase pack and kind of slowly worked my way up through that. And I ended up taking the lead with about 2K to go and just really pushed the end of that race. And I remember feeling super strong, really confident, and just like that winter training had fully paid off. And I ended up running a 15:21, which was an Olympic trials qualifying time. And FlowTrack made a big deal about this, and I was really excited and just felt like I was gaining a ton of good momentum. I love training and I love running, and I fully was taking advantage of this during this time. I was hitting 70+ mile weeks every week, starting to run faster on my easy days, and just being super consistent and getting in great workouts like this 8-mile tempo at 5:37 pace. I was feeling great going into my next race, which was a 3K, again on the same track at UW. And in this race, I was way more confident because I had that 5K to just make me feel great about my fitness. So I took the lead pretty early on, and Gabriella Stafford went with me. And at a lap to go, we were neck and neck. On the back stretch, she actually made a move to pass me, and I tried to go with, but she started to gap me as we went around the curve. But then, once we got to the straight stretch, I swung it wide and pulled up even with her and managed to get the win in 8:54. Now, for those wondering, yes, this is the Gabriella Stafford, who is a Canadian record holder in multiple events, has gone to the Olympics and Worlds, is literally insanely good. So looking back, I'm very proud of pulling off this win. Unfortunately, the greed was catching up to me. I was trying to do too much in training. In the week of that race, I actually ran 84 miles. After that, there start being a lot of notes in my training about my shin or my knee hurting and how it just wasn't getting better. Going into indoor track NCAAs, there was a lot of hype around the rematch of me versus Molly Seidel, and we had the top seed times in both the 3K and the 5K. I went to NCAAs because I wanted to compete, but I hadn't been running for over 2 weeks due to shin and knee pain, and I really didn't know what to expect going into this race. It started out fast, and Molly Seidel and her teammate Anna Rohrer kind of went straight to the lead and were keeping a really honest pace. I stuck my nose in it and hoped for the best, really thinking I could pull something out because I'd been cross-training really hard. But this race didn't end the way I wanted it to. Seidel won in 15:15, and I ended up dropping out with an injury and didn't finish the 5K and didn't race the 3K the next day. This was pretty devastating, and I remember just being so sad, but I was also ready to just move on and get ready for outdoor season. The next week, my coach had me take completely off, which from my training journal, you can tell I was not happy about. And then I found out I had a stress fracture, which was devastating. The rest of my training log from this time is absolutely hilarious because I was the most dramatic possible. I mean, honestly, I did not cope well with this injury. For the next 6 weeks, I didn't run at all, but I cross-trained really hard, usually 2 hours a day with intense intervals and workouts almost every day of the week. I really wanted to be ready for the Olympic trials in June, and I knew that I wouldn't be able to run that much before, so I just wanted to make sure I was doing everything I could. By the beginning of April, I was able to run a lap around the training room without pain, which was a big enough deal for me to write it in my training log, but then the next week I finally got some real mileage and was run walking. That summer, I just stayed in Boise, slowly increased my training, and got ready for the Olympic trials. So if you can remember in the beginning of this video, I qualified to the Olympic trials in the 5K in January during indoor track. Going into the prelim, I was so nervous because I really didn't know what to expect. I'd been running and doing workouts for a while, but I honestly hadn't felt that great, and I just did not know where my fitness was at. But once I got in the race, I honestly felt pretty good, and I was able to be with the lead pack in the 5K prelim and had a pretty good kick, and was keeping up with like Katie Mackey, Shelby Houlihan, Marielle Hall, all big names in the sport, and I was shocked to say the least. But I was able to place 4th in my prelim heat and qualify onto the final, which was a very happy surprise, and it gave me a lot of confidence going into the final. The final started out kind of slow in like a 4:58 mile, and then they just increased the pace from there. But I started fading with about 4 laps to go, and at the final lap, I just was not with the lead pack at all. I managed to finish the race, and I got 8th place, but I felt really disappointed in it because I just felt like if I had had consistent training, I could have been there with a lap to go and maybe could have given my shot at an Olympic team. But you know what? As far as the progress that I made from when I was injured to the end of this race, I was pretty happy. My ability to compete at the Olympic trials made me feel like all my hard work had paid off, and it was awesome to experience this with my family right there. Coming off the Olympic trials, I went home to Alaska and was really enjoying my summer of training, just hitting up some cool trails and having a great time when I then went back to college and started training for cross country, which I was so excited for coming off the last season that had been fun, and also just feeling some momentum from that Olympic trials performance. You can see that I was pretty hyped from this video with my friends and roommates from college, Anna and Maddie. This was actually during a car ride on the way to one of our last practices before our first meet of the season, Roy Griak Invitational. Now, I had placed 2nd there the year before, so I thought it'd be fun to go back and try to redeem myself. But I never ended up racing at Roy Griak. I found out the Tuesday before that I had a sacral stress fracture, which meant 12 weeks off running and watching cross-country season from the sidelines. After the dramatics of my first injury, I tried to cope with this one better and be more positive. So when I was home for Christmas break, I was just enjoying time with family. I was finally able to start running again, and I was changing my training a little bit at this point. I started lifting more. I was trying to get strong, as you can see here from these heavy, heavy weights I was lifting. And this is also the time that I started going to therapy, which Steve drove me to. Shout out, Steve. During indoor track season, which I was redshirting, I went and visited my mom and grandma in California. I actually posted this photo, which was a little tease at maybe what was to come. During spring break, I went to Vancouver, Canada with my roommates. This was the week before Stanford Invitational where I was going to start racing, and I was running consistently and just having a lot of fun with it.
I love moss.
Going into my outdoor track debut, I was having a ton of fun running, but was really apprehensive about racing. I felt a lot of pressure due to my success my true freshman year, and so I was trying to think of ways to just keep things fun. And I don't know if you guys knew, but I was actually a bit of a hurdler in middle and high school. Like, this wasn't just a phase. I competed in hurdles very consistently. I also did triple jump, just wanted to throw that out there. I'm an athlete. But in high school, I did the hurdles a lot my sophomore year and then kind of moved away from them the rest of high school, but still managed to throw them in a few times senior year. So I had experience hurdling, and my sister had also been a steeplechaser in high school. So Coach and I decided we wanted to try the steeplechase. FloTrack thought I was in the 5K, but I tweeted at them saying fake news. The audacity. But anyways, going into Stanford Invite, steeple was the plan. And I hadn't practiced a lot of water jumps, but I felt good about hurdling due to my extensive history. But I remember going over the first jump, I literally forgot that there were going to be like barriers in the race, and I nearly just face planted. The water jumps all race were like a little bit bad, but they were far better than the ones I had done in practice. I remember in practice I had literally like just failed to do a single water jump better than like a C+. But I was pretty relaxed all race, and I took the lead with 2 laps to go and started to get some distance on the field. During the last lap, I was looking pretty strong, but was definitely fading a little bit. Like, the fatigue hit me pretty quick, and I was getting caught up to, but managed to pull away for the win. I had loved my first experience with the steeplechase, and I was excited to continue pursuing it. My next race that season was a 1500 at Mount Sac, where I placed 10th and ran 4:18, which wasn't bad, but I just didn't feel like I did a good job competing in this race. Then I ran a 5K that was pretty relaxed at our home meet, and at conference I was doing the 10K 5K double. In the 10K, it was like 84 degrees at altitude, and we started out really relaxed, and then I tried to pick it up. And this is literally me sprinting the finish of the race, and like, I'm not sprinting. I think I'm going like 5:20 pace at the fastest, but I was so dead in this. I literally finished the race and told my coach, I cannot do the 5K. There is no way I can do that. To this day, this is one of the most tired in my life that I have ever been. Like, that sentence didn't make sense, but that's how I felt. I was not in a good place, but I managed to get the win in the 10K, and I did end up racing the 5K because you know how that goes. But I didn't really do a good job engaging in the race, but I did gain confidence from feeling better than I did in the 10K. The next stop on the road to nationals was regionals, which is how you qualify to the national meet. And for this race, I was excited, and my parents were there, as was shown by this meme that FloTrack made, or actually it's a GIF. I'm so old, I thought it was a meme. Anyways, I was really excited for this race, and it was the first time I was steepling since the Stanford Invite, so this is my second steeplechase ever. And it started out slow, so I just took the lead and kind of slowly got things strung out. Since this was a national qualifying race, I just didn't want to risk things by staying in a slow pace. I went back and put this in slow-mo so I could critique myself, but it actually wasn't even that bad, so nice. But anyways, I felt incredible in this race. When I finished, I just looked straight at my parents and smiled, as you can see here, though it's very blurry. But I finished this race feeling really confident and ready to take on the 5K the next day. I couldn't find any video footage of the 5K, but The regionals were in Austin, Texas, by the way, so it was very hot. So this ran out really slow. And then with about a mile to go, Carissa Schweizer took the lead, and I decided to go with her. I managed to hang on, and I got second in the race, so I qualified to nationals, and so did my teammate Claire. This was another confidence-building race leading to nationals. At nationals, we started running at about 10 flat steeplechase, which at the time my PR was 9:50, which I ran in the prelims. But 3.5 laps in, I decided to take the lead and I cut down the pace. So we were running about 80-second laps. I cut it down to running around 75-second laps. And the reason I did this was because Elle Purrier, who is now an absolute legend on the American scene, was one of the top contenders, and she had a really good kick. So I wanted to run the kick out of her before the last lap. Now, with a lap to go, she passed me, and I kind of felt like she cut me off, so it got me pretty fired up. When we got to the backstretch, I passed her back, and she responded fully, but I just kept pushing, and we were running stride for stride. And then over that barrier, I had a little bit better clearance than she did, as well as on the water jump, and that allowed me to get a lead going into the final stretch, where I then kicked it home and literally started crying on the last stretch because I was so excited to win nationals. I just felt like I had been through so much leading into this and was a completely different person than I had been the last time I competed at nationals, and it just meant so much to be able to get a title. Like, you can see here that I'm starting to cry as I'm coming across the finish line. It was super emotional, and I was just so excited to be on the national scene and competing at a high level again. Now, later that day, I competed in the 5K about 75 minutes later, and I got spiked, but still managed to place fourth, which I was very excited about. And I finished the day with 2 All-American trophies and a big hug from my parents. So it was super exciting. And yeah, that's how I became a national champion. It was a long story, but I hope you feel like it was worth sticking around for.